What if the greatest danger to the church did not come from outside, but was already sitting in the pews, preaching from the pulpits, and organizing events? The Seventh-day Adventist Church was born out of an unwavering commitment to biblical truth. Forged amid disappointments and revivals, it emerged not as just another denomination, but as a prophetic movement, raised up by God to proclaim the last warning message to the world. Over the decades, this church has remained steadfast in principles that challenge modern trends: the Sabbath, the investigative judgment, the heavenly sanctuary, the prophetic gift. Each of these pillars was built on Scripture and maintained with zeal, prayer, and sacrifice. But today, something has changed. Among many sincere members, a concern has been growing quietly. And the uneasiness is not about external attacks. It is about what is coming in, without fanfare, without scandal, right into the ranks of the church. Subtle changes, progressive ideas, worldly pleasing speeches. All of this has left a question hanging in the air. Are we still the peculiar people, set apart, faithful to the message God has entrusted to us? Raising this question is not rebellion. It is responsibility. And it is precisely out of love for the church that we need to speak with courage, but also with reverence. What is silent apostasy? Apostasy rarely begins with scandals. It does not shout, it does not impose itself immediately. It whispers. It creeps in at the edges. It disguises itself as modernization, progress, a new way of thinking. In the Bible, the Apostle Paul already warned about this: for the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but according to their own desires, they will heap up for themselves teachers tickling their ears. 2 Timothy 4 verse 3. Silent apostasy is when eternal principles are softened to suit human preferences. It is when zeal for the truth is replaced by fear of displeasing others. It is when sin comes to be called a different view. Ellen White, in the book The Great Controversy, clearly described this process. Little by little, the church was led away from the simplicity of the gospel. By adapting itself to pagan customs, it lost its power and purity. The Great Controversy, Chapter 3. Today, we do not see an explicit decline in faith. But there are signs of spiritual emptiness, of an almost imperceptible distancing from the pillars that formed the Adventist identity. When worship becomes entertainment. When doctrine is seen as a burden. When the spirit of sacrifice gives way to comfort. It is a sign that something is being exchanged, albeit silently. The question is, are we noticing this? Or are we so accustomed to the new normal that we can no longer see what has been lost? What do you think about this? Have you seen signs of this silent apostasy in your reality? Comment below. Your perspective is important. The doors through which apostasy has entered. Silent apostasy does not enter through broken windows or the front door. It enters through the cracks. Through concessions made in the name of relevance, acceptance, and harmony at any cost. And little by little, without us noticing, the truth is weakened, diluted, displaced from the center. Worldliness disguised as relevance. In many places, music has lost its reverence. Worship has become a spectacle. Liturgy has ceased to reflect holiness and has begun to imitate secular formats. And all this is done with good intentions, to attract young people, to retain members, to keep up with the times. But when the sacred mixes with the profane in the name of contextualization, something essential is lost, the sense of God's presence. It is not a matter of judging musical styles, but of discerning the spirit behind certain practices. Ecumenism disguised as unity. In the name of peace and tolerance, there are increasing invitations for the Adventist Church to participate in interfaith gatherings. These events often omit biblical truths so as not to offend other groups. But the biblical call is clear: do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness? Or what fellowship has light with darkness? 2 Corinthians 6 verse 14. Ecumenism seems like a noble gesture. But when it requires that prophetic truth be silenced, the price becomes too spiritual to pay. Doctrinal relativism. Perhaps the most dangerous of all doors. Today, voices within the church itself, some with titles, others with online influence, have questioned fundamental doctrines, the investigative judgment, the spirit of prophecy, the authority of the Bible as the sole rule of faith. It is not an open denial. It is doubt disguised as critical thinking. Ellen White warned seriously, Satan well knows that those who can be led to neglect prayer and the study of the Scriptures will be overcome by his attacks. The Great Controversy, Chapter 32. When the pillars begin to be questioned within the home itself, the enemy no longer needs to attack from outside. And you? Have you noticed any of these doors being opened, even discreetly, in your church or community? Comment below. Let's reflect together. Effects of this apostasy on members. When the truth is softened, the effects are not immediately apparent. But over time, the fruits become visible and worrisome. Growing spiritual coldness. Worship services become formal, mechanical, empty of life. Prayer loses its power. Bible study becomes rare. Membership becomes complacent, as if it had already achieved everything it needed to. The zeal that once characterized Adventist people is being replaced by a lukewarm religiosity, without passion, without commitment. You have a name that you are alive, but you are dead. Revelation 3 verse 1. Loss of sense of mission. The church was called to proclaim the three angelic messages, to warn the world that judgment has come. But when apostasy enters, this mission becomes uncomfortable, outdated, even embarrassing. Instead of boldly proclaiming, many prefer to remain silent so as not to appear radical. Confused young people and divided leaders. Young people, who grow up seeing this mixture of the sacred and the secular, become unsure about what is right. When doctrinal clarity is lacking, moral confusion abounds. And many leaders, instead of pointing the way forward with firmness, end up divided between pleasing God and pleasing trends. The result? A scattered people, without spiritual direction, vulnerable to any wind of doctrine. Internal criticism of the prophetic history of the church. What was once a source of spiritual pride, such as the prophetic emergence of the SDA Church, the ministry of Ellen White, and the sanctuary message, is now often ridiculed by voices within the church itself. As if fidelity to the past were an obstacle to the future. But there is no future without roots. And a church that denies its origins loses its identity. God still has a people within the church. Not all light has gone out. Not all flames have been extinguished. Even amid confusion, deviation, and spiritual lukewarmness, God still has a people within His church. Ellen White wrote clearly, "The faults and failures of men should not be used as an excuse to despise the church. Despite its imperfections, it is the object of Christ's supreme care." Acts of the Apostles, page 12. Just as in Elijah's time, when it seemed that everyone had strayed, God declared, "I have left 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed to Baal." 1 Kings 19 verse 18. There is indeed a faithful remnant. Simple but steadfast people. Discreet but committed young people. Elders, preachers, leaders, and members who have not surrendered to the spirit of this world. Men and women who pray, study, fast, defend the truth, and zealously await the soon return of Jesus. They do not remain silent in the face of apostasy, but they also do not abandon the church, because they know that God still walks among His people. The criticism, therefore, is not against the Adventist church. It is against what is infiltrating it, threatening its identity, its mission, and its prophetic calling. Faithfulness is not leaving the ark when water enters. It is remaining in it and helping to repair the cracks, always looking to the commander who never left the helm. The call to watch and remain steadfast. In times of confusion, God's call is not for alarmism, it is for vigilance. It is not to abandon the field, it is to stand firm until the end. Be faithful until death, and I will give you the crown of life. Revelation 2 verse 10. Examine everything. Hold on to what is good. 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 21. The true Christian does not settle, blend in, or rebel. He discerns. He prays. He watches. He stands firm, but with a spirit of meekness. The world is becoming faster, more chaotic, and more attractive. And the temptation to adapt the gospel to human preferences has never been stronger. But Christ did not call us to be popular. He called us to be faithful. Ellen White wrote, "Only those who have strengthened their minds with the truths of the Bible will stand in the last great conflict." The Great Controversy, ch. 37. This video is not an attack. It is a loving warning. It is a reminder that we belong to a people who carry a prophetic message, unique, urgent, irreplaceable. But this message must be preserved. It must be proclaimed with clarity, purity, and power. If silent apostasy has crept in, it is time to wake up, not run away. It is time to return to the Bible, to resume prayer, to raise our voices with reverence and courage. Are you willing to stand firm, even when the majority remains silent? Comment here. Your steadfastness can awaken and strengthen other brothers and sisters as well. Apostasy can creep in. It can sneak in, weaken values, confuse minds, and try to silence the truth. But it does not have to dominate. Because even in times of spiritual darkness, God still has a people who do not bend, who do not sell out, who do not remain silent. A people who remain on their knees when everyone else is standing before Baal. A people who carry the torch of truth, even when the wind blows strong. A people who love the church, not because it is perfect, but because it is the body through which God is still working his last work in this world. The greatest challenge of our generation is not to identify mistakes, but to remain faithful, even if we are in the minority. Here is the perseverance of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Revelation 14 verse 12. May the Lord find us vigilant. Not just as members of a denomination, but as servants committed to the whole truth, until the end. May we be part of that faithful remnant. May we be found standing, with the Bible in hand, our hearts on the altar, and our eyes on heaven. If this message spoke to your heart, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Your comments are also very welcome, we want to hear your opinion. And if you want to support this work and help this message reach even more lives, consider sending a super chat. Every bit of support helps us continue to produce content with responsibility, truth, and respect. Thank you for watching this far. May God bless you and your home. See you in the next video, God willing.